The first light of dawn spread across the dusty red plains of Kisano, a small and vibrant town tucked between rolling hills and the wide shimmering river that cut through the heart of the land like a silver ribbon. The marketplace would soon awaken. Rows of wooden stalls, the scent of fresh maize roasting over coal, crates of mangoes and papayas stacked like treasure, women calling out prices in rhythmic melodies that sounded more like songs than negotiations. This town was alive. But life in Kisano wasn't easy. Among its people lived a humble couple, Ayo and Lila Mwendi, both in their mid-30s, strong-spirited and deeply in love. Their house was small, built from clay and corrugated iron sheets that rattled when the rain came. But inside it held something more precious than wealth: hope. Ayo was tall, with determined eyes and hands shaped by years of labor. He once worked as a bus driver for a private company, waking before sunrise and returning long after dark, bones aching, earning barely enough to feed his family. Layla, graceful yet fierce, had a quiet fire within her. She ran a tiny roadside food stall, Mama Layla's kitchen, selling chapati, spice stew, and rice to passing travelers. They dreamed of something bigger, a real restaurant, a place where people would not just eat, but feel at home, something that belonged to them, built with their own hands. But dreams cost money they did not have. One blistering afternoon, Ayo returned from work exhausted, sweat soaking his shirt. He sat beside Lila outside their house, watching children run barefoot across the field. "They cut salaries again," he said softly, his voice strained. Layla looked at him, heart sinking. "How will we pay rent this month?" Ayo swallowed hard. "I don't know." Silence filled the air, heavy like thick smoke. Then Layla spoke, carefully choosing her words. "Ayo, maybe it's time. We've talked about opening our business for years. Maybe we stop waiting for the perfect moment and create it." Ayo sighed. "But without money, how?" "With faith," she replied. "With work, with sacrifice." He looked into her eyes, and something shifted. A spark. "When you believe in something, truly believe," Layla said, touching his hand, "the world moves to help you." Ayo nodded slowly. That night, they prayed together, and they made a decision that would change their lives forever. They would start small, very small. Using their savings, they would buy a used wooden cart and cooking equipment. They would sell food at the market instead of a roadside stand. They would wake before dawn and work until night. Every coin would go into growing the dream. It sounded impossible, but impossible had never stopped them before. For weeks, they walked from place to place, searching for a cart they could afford. Finally, they found one, old, rusted, with one broken wheel. Ayo rubbed the wood thoughtfully. "It's falling apart," Layla whispered. Ayo smiled. "So were we. But here we are." They bought it anyway. Ayo repaired it by hand at night, using scrap metal and borrowed tools. Layla tested recipes over and over, adjusting ingredients to stretch their budget without sacrificing flavor. Paprika stew, spicy goat soup, coconut rice, fried plantain. The kitchen smelled like hope. They worked late every night, falling asleep on their feet, but every time exhaustion threatened to crush them, they repeated the words, "We are building something our children will inherit." Before sunrise, Roosters crowed across Kisano. Io and Layla pushed the cart through uneven dirt roads in the cold morning stillness. Their fingers tingled with numbness, but inside they felt warm with determination. The market was already stirring, vendors shouting colors everywhere, the smell of coffee and smoke rising from charcoal stoves. They set up their cart under a tall acacia tree. Layla lit the stove. Ayo arranged plates and cups, polishing everything until it shone. Layla cooked slowly, deliberately adding spices like an artist adds color. The sun climbed the sky, but the customers did not come. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3. People walked past without stopping. Some smiled politely. Some ignored them. Some went to the well-established food stalls where queues were already forming. Ayo looked at Layla. She forced a smile, though her eyes glistened. "We keep waiting," she said. By afternoon, they had sold only 2 plates of food. Ayo lowered his head. Maybe this was a mistake. Layla squeezed his arm. No dream blooms in a single sunrise. We try again tomorrow. They returned home late that night, exhausted. They counted the few coins in silence. The amount was too little even to replace the ingredients they used. Their savings were nearly gone. They woke again before dawn, and again customers were few, and again they returned home discouraged. But on the 3rd day, something different happened. An elderly man limped toward their cart and sat down. His clothes were worn, his walking stick cracked. He looked as though he hadn't eaten in days. "I have no money," he whispered, "but I am hungry." Ayo looked at Layla. Without a word, Layla filled a plate, large and overflowing, and handed it to the old man with a smile. "Eat with peace," she said softly. Tears filled the man's eyes. He ate silently, slowly, savoring every bite. Before leaving, he whispered, "You have given me life today, and I pray life returns this to you tenfold." They watched him disappear down the road. That night, as they prepared to sleep, Ayo whispered, "Maybe kindness is also an investment." The next morning, something unbelievable happened. People gathered around their cart in a long line, more than 20, then 30. The market buzzed. Someone shouted, "This is the place! Best food in Kisano!" The elderly man from the day before stood proudly in front of the crowd, smiling. "My children," he said, "this couple fed me when I had nothing. Their hearts are good, and their food is even better. Let us support them." Customers flooded in. Plates emptied. Ingredients ran out. Coins filled the wooden jar. Ayo and Layla worked tirelessly, sweat dripping, arms aching, but their faces glowed with joy. By sunset, they had earned more than Ayo's weekly salary in a single day. That night, they sat outside under the stars, counting the money with trembling hands. Layla whispered, "Ayo, we did it." He smiled, eyes wet. "No," he said softly, "we started it." Days turned to weeks. The small cart became well known. Travelers came from other towns to taste Layla's recipes. Io built benches and tables from scrap wood so customers could sit. People called their food the taste of home. But success brought challenges. They needed more ingredients, more equipment, more space. Growth demanded money. They worked even harder. Ao stopped sleeping more than 3 or 4 hours a night. Layla's hands became rough from cooking and scrubbing, but she smiled through every blister. Then disaster struck. The rain season arrived early. Heavy storms battered the market, destroying wooden stalls and flooding the ground. Their cart wobbled and trembled in the wind. One night, lightning cracked and a violent storm ripped through Kisano. Io and Lila ran outside in the darkness to save their cart, rain hitting their faces like stones. "We must hold it," Ao shouted. The wind shoved them. The cart skidded sideways and crashed into the mud, snapping one wheel in half. Water destroyed their stock of rice and flour. Their stove cracked. Their savings were not enough to repair everything. They sat in the mud, soaked, trembling, staring at what was left of their dream. "Io," Layla whispered, voice breaking. "What do we do now?" Io put his arm around her, pulling her close. "We rebuild," he said, "even if we must start again with nothing, because our dream is still alive." Layla cried quietly into his chest, her tears mixing with the rain. And in that storm and absolute darkness they made a vow. No matter what comes, we will not give up. The storm did not end quickly. For 3 long days and nights, rain pounded the town of Kisano without mercy. The red soil turned into thick mud that swallowed footsteps, and the river swelled, spilling over its banks and flooding entire sections of the marketplace. Vendors cried as their stalls washed away, their hard work floating like broken pieces of wood in the rushing water. Ao and Layla stood at the edge of the flooded market on the 4th morning, watching the remains of their food cart half buried in dirty water. The wheel was split in 2. The wooden panels warped, their pots dented, and the stove rusted beyond repair. The storm had taken everything they had built. Ao's chest tightened painfully. He swallowed hard, fighting the burn behind his eyes. "We work so hard," he whispered. Layla touched the ruined stove gently as though it were a wounded friend. "It will take money to fix this," she said quietly. Money they no longer had. That evening, they sat inside their dimly lit house, listening to the rain hammer the roof like stones. The silence between them was heavy. Finally, Layla spoke. "We have one thing left." Io already knew what she meant, and his stomach twisted. The sewing machine. It had once belonged to her mother, a precious family heirloom, and Layla used it to make a little extra income by tailoring clothes for neighbors. It was the only valuable thing remaining after years of struggle. "If we sell it," she hesitated, voice trembling, "we can repair the cart. Maybe buy new supplies." Ao shook his head immediately. "No, I will not allow that. Your mother entrusted it to you." Layla looked at him with steady eyes. "She entrusted me with strength, not a machine. It's just an object. Our future is more important." Io rubbed his face with both hands. "I can't ask you to sacrifice something so precious." "You didn't ask," she replied softly. I offered. Tears welled in Io's eyes. He turned toward her and took her hands. Layla, I promise you, one day I will buy you 100 sewing machines. One day you will smile and never worry again. Layla smiled through her tears. Dreams begin with sacrifices, my love. The next morning, under a still gray sky, they walked together to the pawn shop with the sewing machine wrapped carefully in cloth. The shopkeeper examined it without emotion. I will give you 38,000 shillings for it. It was barely enough, but it was something. They exchanged determined looks and nodded. For the next 2 weeks, Ao spent every free hour repairing the cart. He replaced broken planks, hammered new metal supports, polished wheels, scraped rust from every surface. His hands bled, his muscles ached, and his back stiffened till he could hardly bend. But every time pain struck, he whispered, We rebuild. Meanwhile, Layla traveled from town to town, sometimes walking for hours to buy the cheapest ingredients. She woke at 3 a.m. to prepare spices, chop vegetables, and test new recipes using the tiniest amounts to avoid waste. Their house was constantly filled with the smell of garlic, ginger, coconut, curry, and hope. Some nights they fell asleep, sitting up on the kitchen floor, too exhausted to move. Some mornings they woke before the stars faded, cold and aching, but determined. People whispered about them around Kisano. Look at them. They work like fire never burns. Do they think hard work alone can change fate? But Ao and Layla never responded. They had learned long ago. Dreams don't come true for those who wait. They come true for those who work. When the market finally reopened, the sun shone bright and hopeful on the muddy ground. Vendors returned slowly, building new stalls beside the ruins of the old ones. Life, as always, fought its way forward. Ao and Layla pushed their newly restored cart to their usual spot under the acacia tree. The cart still looked worn, patched with mismatched wood, but it was strong. It stood like a survivor. Layla set a fresh cloth over the counter. Ao lit the stove. The fire crackled, a sound like triumph. The smell of food drifted through the air. Coconut rice steaming, stew bubbling, fried plantains sizzling, and slowly people began to gather. Are you open again? A woman asked. Ao smiled. Yes, we are here, and we are ready. Customers returned, some familiar faces, some new. The old man they had once fed arrived too, walking slowly with his stick. A storm can destroy wood, he said proudly, but it cannot destroy good hearts. They served plate after plate until sunset. Their hands moved fast, their bodies exhausted, but their spirits soared. By evening, they counted the money, and though it was less than before the storm, it was enough to survive one more week. That night, lying under a sky scattered with stars, Ao whispered, We are rising again. Layla rested her head on his shoulder. Step by step, she said, great rivers begin with tiny drops. Success began returning slowly, but as they learned, new blessings often come with new trials. 1 month later, a new food business opened near the market. It was shiny, modern, and painted bright yellow and red. People whispered excitedly, "Golden Taste Restaurant." They say the owner returned from the city with big money. It had everything Io and Layla didn't. Polished tables, electric lighting, modern stoves, a printed menu, waiters in matching uniforms, and loud music that drew crowds from far and wide. For the first time since the storm, fear gripped their hearts. Customers began turning away from their humble cart and walking toward the glittering new restaurant. Ayo watched the long line outside it and felt his stomach twist. "Maybe people want fancy things now," he said quietly. Layla shook her head. "People don't eat furniture or paint. They eat flavor. They eat love. We must be better. We must work harder." But the challenge was not small. In the next weeks, their sales dropped sharply. Days passed when they made barely enough to buy ingredients. They returned home some nights with empty pockets and heavy hearts. One evening, Io sat on the ground outside their house, staring into the distance. "Maybe we cannot compete," he said. "Maybe this dream is too big for us." Layla sat beside him, placing her hand gently on his. "Listen to me," she said softly. "Success is not measured by the speed of victory, but by the refusal to stop. People forget quickly, but they also remember deeply. We will remind them why they loved us." "How?" Io asked bitterly. "By giving more than food. By giving what money cannot buy." Starting the next morning, they changed everything. They began delivering food to local workers who could not leave their jobs. Ao ran across town carrying trays of hot meals, sweating under the burning sun. Lila wrote handwritten notes on small pieces of paper and slipped them inside the food boxes. "Thank you for supporting us. We are grateful for you. Made with love, from our hearts to yours." People were touched. They created a special discount for widows, students, and the elderly. They offered free tea to anyone who waited longer than 5 minutes. They greeted every customer like family, with warmth, laughter, and genuine care. And slowly, people returned. Customers said, "No one cares like they do. Their food tastes like home." The line at Golden Taste grew shorter. The line at Ao and Layla's cart grew longer. But it came at a heavy price. Ao's body weakened from running deliveries all day. His ankles swelled and chest pains woke him at night. His hands blistered from lifting pots and pushing the cart. Layla, who stood over fire every day, developed painful burns across her arms. She stopped sleeping more than 2 hours a night. One evening, while cooking, she suddenly fainted, collapsing to the ground as the pot crashed beside her. "Ayo!" someone shouted. He rushed toward her, lifting her into his arms, trembling. "Layla, stay with me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm just tired." He carried her home, tears streaming down his face. He laid her gently on their bed. "You cannot keep pushing yourself like this," he said, voice breaking. She opened her eyes, weak but determined. "If we stop now, everything we fought for will disappear." Ao held her hand tightly. "No dream," he said firmly, "is worth losing you." Layla smiled faintly. But dreams are the reason we survive. He leaned his forehead against hers. We survive because we have each other. That night he stayed awake, watching her breathe, realizing that dreams demand sacrifice, but love demands protection. The next morning, he made a decision. We will work smarter, not harder. While Layla rested, Ao went into town and met a group of teenagers who were looking for work. He offered to train them to make deliveries in exchange for modest salaries and a free meal every day. They agreed excitedly. The business grew faster. Their delivery service spread across Kisano. People began posting reviews about them on community pages and telling friends in nearby villages. The demand exploded so suddenly that Ayo and Layla were overwhelmed. We need a bigger place, Ayo said one night. A permanent restaurant. Layla's eyes widened. Can we really do it? Maybe not today, he smiled. But soon. Very soon. They had risen from nothing twice. This time, nothing could stop them. The business was growing quickly, faster than Ayo and Layla had ever imagined. Word about their food spread across neighboring towns. Travelers stopped by the market just to taste the flavors people called magic in a bowl. Their handwritten notes became famous throughout Kisano. Made with love. Thank you for believing in us. People said, Ayo and Layla don't just sell food, they sell hope. But success, they would soon learn, always comes with shadows. One warm morning, Ayo and Layla sat on a rock overlooking the river. The water shimmered beneath the sunlight, flowing slowly and calmly through the valley. A cool breeze rustled the tall grass around them. We cannot keep working from a cart forever, Ayo said, looking out across the water. The line grows every day. People wait too long. We need space, real space. You're thinking of buying land? Layla asked. Ao nodded. A place where we can build a small restaurant, a strong one, with walls that storms cannot break. Layla imagined it, a warm space filled with laughter, with long tables where families gathered, with music and candles and smiles. She pressed her hand against her heart. Ayo, yes, it's time. They used nearly all their savings to purchase a small piece of land on the edge of the market. The price frightened them, so much money disappearing at once, but they believed it was their next step. Every night after closing the cart, they sat at the table drawing sketches by candlelight. Ayo measured and remeasured, planning walls, windows, and the perfect kitchen layout. They argued, laughed, and dreamed together like children designing a castle. This place, Ayo said proudly one night, will be our legacies. Our gift to the future, Layla added. They began construction the next month. Ao worked side by side with the builders, mixing cement, carrying bricks, cutting wood. He refused to stand back and watch. His shirt was constantly soaked with sweat. His hands blistered and cracked, but he never stopped smiling. Layla cooked and delivered food to the workers every day. Eat well, she would say. Build with strength. The workers respected them deeply, moved by their dedication. Many said, if more people loved like you, the world would change. Brick by brick, the dream grew. Walls rose. Windows were shaped. Wooden beams stretched across the top. Every evening, after everyone left, Ao and Lila stood inside the unfinished building, staring around in silent wonder. "Look at this," Io whispered. "We created this with our hands." Layla slipped her hand into his. "With heart," she corrected. Just as the building neared completion, disaster struck again, this time quietly and without warning. One morning, the contractor they had trusted, Mr. Baruti, arrived to collect the final payment. He was a well-dressed man with polished shoes and a confident smile. He had promised them fair prices and honest work. He spoke gently and had won their trust. "The remaining balance is due today," he said. Io nodded, handing him an envelope filled with every remaining shilling they owned. Baruti counted the money, then shook his head slowly. "This is not enough," he said calmly. Io frowned. "We agreed on this amount. The total cost was fixed." "No," Baruti replied, adjusting his glasses. "Material costs have increased. You owe an additional 115,000 shillings. Layla gasped. "That is impossible. You never told us about any increase." Baruti shrugged coldly. "I'm telling you now. And if the full amount is not paid by tomorrow morning, my workers will remove everything they built." Io felt his stomach drop. "You would tear down what we already paid for?" "A contract is a contract," Baruti said sharply. "If you cannot afford quality, you should not have tried to build." He turned and walked away, leaving them shaking with shock. That evening, they sat inside the half-finished building, surrounded by walls that suddenly felt like a cage. The sky darkened and cold wind blew through the open structure. "We have nothing left to give," Io whispered, staring at the dirt floor. Layla closed her eyes, fighting tears. "After everything, are we going to lose again?" Ao punched the ground with his fists, the pain shooting through his bones. "We worked until our bodies broke. We sacrificed everything. Why is it never enough?" Layla touched his face gently. "Because every great dream is tested by fire." "But fire burns," Ao said bitterly. "Fire also shapes gold," she replied softly. A tear rolled down his cheek. "We need help," he said, "but we have no one to ask." Layla's voice trembled. "We are not alone. We gave so much love to people. Maybe now, love will return." The next morning, something astonishing happened. As Io and Layla stood outside the half-built restaurant, preparing for the worst, ready to watch it be destroyed, a crowd began gathering. Dozens of people, then more. Workers, neighbors, customers, students, widows, elders, faces from every part of Kisano. The elderly man they once fed stepped forward, leaning on his stick, his voice strong and steady. "This couple has fed us. They have loved us. They have lifted our spirits. They built this dream for the community, not for themselves. And we will not let that dream fall." People began placing money on the table before them. Coins, small bills, envelopes. A teacher spoke. "You delivered food to us during exam weeks when we were too busy to eat." A mother said, You fed my son when he had no money. A mechanic shouted, You treated us like family. Today, we treat you the same. In less than an hour, the crowd grew to hundreds. Children held homemade signs painted with charcoal. We believe in you, Io and Layla. Don't give up. Ao's hands shook as donations piled higher and higher. Tears streamed down Layla's face. The old man stepped forward again and said, This is not charity. This is gratitude. When they finished counting, the amount totaled more than enough to cover the contractor's demands, and more. Ao dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. We do not deserve this, he cried. The elderly man raised his chin proudly. You earned this with kindness, and kindness returns like the tide. When Baruti returned later that day, expecting to watch their dream crumble, he found the entire community standing united around the building. People stared at him with anger blazing in their eyes. You will not tear down anything here, the old man said firmly. Baruti looked shocked. His confidence cracked. I was only doing business. No, Io said, stepping forward. You were trying to destroy us. Baruti swallowed hard as the crowd glared. Ao held out the payment. We will pay what we owe, but after today you will never again step near our dreams. Baruti snatched the money and left silently, humiliated. The people cheered as he disappeared down the dusty road. The workers returned, lifting their tools with pride and finishing the building with renewed passion. Together, brick by brick, heart by heart, the restaurant was completed. Its name stood beautifully carved above the entrance, House of Hope. Ao and Layla stood before it, holding hands, trembling with emotion. They had survived storms, hunger, betrayal, exhaustion, and heartbreak, but they were still standing, and stronger than ever. The sun rose bright and golden over Kisano the morning of the grand opening. It was one of those rare mornings when the air felt soft and hopeful, when the sky stretched endlessly without a single cloud. Birds danced above the newly built restaurant, their chirping sounding like celebration. Ao and Layla stood outside the entrance of their new restaurant, House of Hope, staring at it as though afraid it might disappear if they blinked. The signboard, freshly painted in earthy brown and gold, gleamed in the sunlight. The building was simple but beautiful. Smooth walls of reddish clay, wide wooden doors polished until they shined, windows decorated with hand-woven curtains Layla had sewn herself inside. Long tables made from local wood stretched across the room, each decorated with small vases filled with wildflowers. The air carried the warm scent of spices, roasted meat, fried plantain, and coconut. Ao squeezed Layla's hand. We made it, he whispered. Layla smiled, eyes glistening. No, she said softly. We fought for it. Their hearts beat fast with emotion. They thought of every moment that led to this day, every tear, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every step through mud and storm. This place is not built from bricks, Ao said, voice shaking. but from pain and courage. And love, Layla added gently. They turned as footsteps echoed behind them, and then, like a river bursting through its banks, people flooded in from every direction, hundreds of them, families, students, elders, workers, neighbors, people carrying baskets of flowers, singing, clapping, cheering. The old man they once fed walked toward them slowly, supported on his cane. The crowd quieted as he spoke. "My children," he said proudly, "you built more than a restaurant. You built hope. You showed us what it means to rise even when broken, to stand even when pushed to the ground. This house is a symbol for our entire town." He lifted a pair of scissors wrapped in ribbon. "Let us open the doors to a new beginning." Io and Layla held the ribbon together. The scissors sliced through, and cheers erupted through the air. The House of Hope was officially born. The restaurant filled instantly. Every seat was taken. People lined up outside, waiting patiently, many holding handmade banners that read, "We stand with you. Taste of love. Our heroes of Kisano." Inside the kitchen, Io and Lila worked side by side like they always had, moving fast, silently, communicating with gentle glances and smiles. Their young delivery workers helped serve tables and clean dishes. Laughter and music echoed through the room. Customer after customer praised the flavors. "This tastes like home. Better than any restaurant in the city. The love is in every bite." Ao and Layla barely had a moment to breathe. Their bodies were tired, their clothes soaked with sweat, but their hearts felt like fire. Near evening, when the crowd finally began to thin, they stepped outside for fresh air. The orange glow of sunset wrapped the restaurant like a warm blanket. Layla leaned her head on Io's shoulder. "Do you remember," she whispered, "the first day at the market when we sold only 2 plates?" Ao chuckled. "And I thought everything was over." "And today," she said, voice trembling, "look where we stand." Ao looked up at the sky, filled with gratitude. "We were carried by hands we didn't even know were holding us." As night fell, lanterns were lit all around the restaurant. People gathered outside in a circle, humming soft melodies. Children played in the dirt, laughter echoing like bells. The elderly man asked Io to speak. Io's hands trembled as he stepped onto the wooden platform. His voice was shaky at first, but steady with emotion. "My friends, when we began this journey, we had nothing but a broken cart, empty pockets, and dreams bigger than our reality. There were days we wanted to quit, days we cried, days we wonder whether fate was against us." He paused, looking at the crowd, their faces glowing in lantern light. "But we learned something powerful. Life does not give success to the strongest or wealthiest. It gives success to those who refuse to stop trying." Silence fell across the crowd. "We discovered that the world is full of good people, people who will lift you when you fall, people who will fight for your dream when you no longer have strength left. Today is not about us. Today is about community, about love, about hope." He looked at Layla, his voice breaking, "and about standing together no matter how heavy the storm." The crowd erupted into applause. Many wiped tears from their eyes. Then Layla stepped forward, her voice warm and gentle. To every person who believed in us, thank you. You didn't just help us build a restaurant. You built a family. You proved that success is not a mountain climbed alone. It is a ladder built by many hands, and we promise this place will always serve more than food. It will serve love. She pointed to the sign above the door. House of Hope. A home, she said, smiling, is not made of walls. It is made of hearts. The years that followed transformed Kisano forever. The House of Hope became famous far beyond the town. Travelers came from other cities and countries just to experience its warmth and taste its food. Journalists wrote stories about the couple who turned suffering into strength. Young people came to work and learn from them, and they trained many to start their own businesses. The restaurant expanded, adding a bakery, a rooftop dining area, and a training kitchen for students who couldn't afford school fees. They never forgot their roots. Every year, on the anniversary of their grand opening, Ao and Layla cooked a huge feast and served food for free to the entire community. And every year, the elderly man, now weaker and slower, was given the first seat at the table. He became family, honored, respected, cherished. One quiet evening, many years later after closing time, Ao and Layla sat together on the restaurant's balcony, watching lanterns float over the river during a local celebration. They held hands, their faces calm and full of peace. "We did well," Ao whispered. "We did more than well," Layla said, smiling. "We became who we were meant to be." They looked at their restaurant below, the lights glowing softly, laughter drifting through the windows. "This isn't just our dream anymore," Layla murmured. "It belongs to everyone." Ao nodded. "Dreams grow," he said, "when they are shared." They sat quietly, their fingers intertwined, proud and grateful. And far below, the sign shone gently in the night. House of Hope, built from struggle, fed by sacrifice, held up by love.